Greetings in the precious love of Jesus today, friends. It's good to see you. Don't you just love how God's word has so many hidden treasures in it? Some are wonderfully obvious that just hit you face on, and then there are some other little nuggets, not as obvious, but just as meaningful and helpful and life-bringing. Like in the story of Ruth. Ruth was a Moabite woman who married an Israelite man called Mahlon. And as we read her story in Ruth chapter 1, the Bible indicates that Ruth and Mahlon were married for 10 years. And while the Bible doesn't dwell on this, I can't help but notice what doesn't happen in those 10 years. In those 10 years, there's no special announcement of a coming bundle of joy, no baby shower, no preparing a baby room or a special space for the new member of the family, no pitter-patter of little baby feet, no nappies and teething rings, nothing, none of that, because Ruth remains childless in those 10 years of marriage. Now, this was especially long for a couple in ancient times, and I cannot help but wonder how this was for Ruth. In those 10 years, did she have to deal with frequently dashed hopes as possible dreams of a baby just didn't seem to materialize month after month? As she looked at others, either married before her or after her, holding their beautiful babies and raising their families, did she have a battle in her heart and in her mind, asking herself, why not me too? When will my turn come? Did she have to put up with unwelcome looks of pity or speculation of what she had or hadn't done to not be blessed with a baby? Did she have to face questioning looks from her mother-in-law or other family members? Was she worried that Mahlon may possibly take another wife who would give him what she seemingly seemed unable to? I don't know. I can only imagine. But what we do know is that Ruth's situation doesn't get any better at that point, only worse. Her husband Mahlon dies, and now Ruth is not only childless, but she's husbandless as well. And to be a childless widow was among the lowest, most disadvantaged classes in the ancient world. You would have no husband to support you, and you would have to rely on your family, keeping in mind that her mother-in-law had just become a widow, and her sister-in-law was in the same situation as she was. They were all widows. And so you would have to rely on family members or the generosity and kindness of others just to survive. What a terrible situation Ruth finds herself in. So hard, so difficult. But wait, this is not the end of the story. The credits haven't started to roll down yet. This situation that is bleak and hard and seemingly void of hope is not how Ruth's story concludes. To quickly summarize a beautiful story, Ruth, who shows incredible loyalty and strength of character through a series of very interesting events. Let me just say, I am so glad I didn't meet my husband the way Ruth met hers. Ruth meets and marries a great guy, a man by the name of Boaz. And then look what happens. In Ruth chapter 4, verse 13, we see, and the Lord enabled her, Ruth, to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. Just like that, Ruth not only becomes a mother, but she also becomes a member of Jesus' family tree as her long-awaited and beloved son in time becomes the grandfather to Judah's great King David. Why? Because in his time and in his way and in his will, the Lord enabled her. What a turnaround story from being among the lowest and disadvantaged to being a member of the bloodline of Jesus Christ. From a poor widow to being the honored wife of Boaz. From barren and childless to being the best great, lots of greats, grandmother of Jesus. Because the Lord enabled her. While we may not find ourselves in Ruth's situation, you and I have times when things are hard or when things don't make sense, when the situation we find ourselves in seems unfair, scary, overwhelming, or when we struggle to see how things could possibly get better. In fact, sometimes they seem to get worse. If you feel a little bit like that today, please allow the story of Ruth to bring you hope, great hope. Let Ruth's story whisper some encouragement to your heart. Let it remind you that God knows what He is doing, that His timing is perfect, that He is in control. Ruth's story tells us that God actually does have a plan in all of this, even if you cannot see it right now. It tells us that He knows what is good for you and that He will work this out, that God is for you and not against you, that He will bring good, even something beautiful, from the difficulty that you are facing. Take heart today, precious friends, in the situation that you find yourself in. God is up to something. He is at work, maybe behind the scenes, but yet so close on hand. So very, very close. And like with Ruth, He is quite possibly doing something bigger than you can even imagine. Hold on to that today. Allow Ruth's story of God's timing and God's great faithfulness to birth fresh hope in your heart and in your mind today. God bless you.